Hello, good evening, and welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor, and I'm very glad to have you. And today I wanted to discuss, well, of course, the worst news that we have is that once again, U.S. is involved in a war it shouldn't be involved in. We have all the neocons out there. Hurrah, hurrah, we're involved. Hurrah, hurrah, we're the big dog on the block. Hurrah, hurrah, we can get our regime change if that's what we so desire. And I don't know. I'm so tired of this. It's like a constant refrain. We go in, we find a new enemy. I intend a little bit to go through the Brookings Institute article. Well, not article, it's a published paper from ages ago that, well, 2009, outlining how they get this to happen. Now, there are different points of view on overcoming Iran, and this paper outlined a number of different paths to take care of it from a expert point of view, alleged expert point of view. And the paper from the Brookings Institute stated that, I'll go over a little bit of a synopsis of the entire paper for you. But the fact is, here we are, right in the playbook, right where we are supposed to be. And I want to let you all know of my distress at the very beginning of this is that I am probably truly and very deeply disappointed in Donald Trump. I thought he might be different, even though I've questioned for ever since he, won the second term here, which some people argue is really his third term because he won the last time too. But I don't really care about that. I'm not all that interested in getting into it. But I think that if you go from the point of view of what is disappointing to me extremely, is that Donald Trump has caved to the neocon, war loving, I don't know what, war loving neocons, including Marco Rubio, by the way. Remember, I've always been a little critical of the selection of him and how he's going to end up there, and whether or not he was the right choice for the Secretary of State post. Now, I have been encouraged by what they are doing regarding the Ukraine conflict. But I always worried about the other because these are extremely anti China, extremely pro Israel sorts. I'm not anti Israel. I'm not anti or pro China. I see the world as more of a reality than you have to pick a camp on either side. But I'm very tired of the same old, same old. And I hate to say it, that Americans need to wake up and understand that the rest of the world are sometimes tired of us as well. And they don't want to see us. They don't want to see us, I don't know what, as the only political force in the world. Why are we the only political force in the world that uh, gets to discuss gets to dictate more or less what the rest of the world will do? And I think it is well past time for Americans to realize that. And so I I want to review some of this introduction from this Brookings Institute "Which Path to Persia" strategy, and or "Which Path Persia" strategy, and discuss how that goes. Because here we are again in another war in the United States, and here we are again where Donald Trump has told us he's not a war. He doesn't want to be a wartime president. He wants to make a deal. This is not making a deal, and in fact, this is Donald Trump being manipulated. Donald Trump has been manipulated into this, and he wants to turn it around and say it's his own choice, but it isn't. He is doing exactly what they prepped him to do, and he caved. And I wanted a commander in chief. I did not want somebody who has caved. And he caved. And I don't like that. Why in the world Donald Trump doesn't need to cave? If there is an adult in the room, it is Donald Trump. He isn't required to follow Lindsey Graham or to follow any of these other people. He's not he's not required to do so. Nor should he. He should make his own path. But nope, this is not his path. This is the path of the same old, same old. And I think he has made a very large mistake. And of course, right after that, we have uh, Marco Rubio issuing the threats. Now it's Marco Rubio's turn to initiate the threats. And I think that is a mistake as well. Now, initially, if you recall, where is it? I want to find this article for you and give you a a point of view of what they said, or what DJ Vance said right afterward, or right before. I mean, right before he uh, was right before these strikes. And when he's in the strikes, he doesn't really look all that happy. When he's watching the strikes, uh, when he's standing there, presenting a good front, presenting a front where people are speaking together. But the articles across the planet say Vance opposes U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel war, per Reuters. And U.S. President Vance does not support his country's involvement in the conflict between Israel and Iran, Reuters reported. The Reuters article revealing his stance came out on Saturday, just hours before President Trump ordered strikes on Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan nuclear sites. I apologize if I didn't say those quite the way they need to be stated. According to the sources, Vance made his opinion clear during a tense phone call with Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and other top officials from Washington. Gee, wonder if old Lindsey Graham was on the call. Yeah, how much you want to bet he was on the call? Netanyahu and his associates used the exchange to try to persuade the president to give up on his own 2-week deadline that he had given Tehran to reach a deal and immediately take part in Israeli attacks on Iran. Okay. Uh, yeah, we need that. We need that. This is how the plan goes through, which we'll go through in a little bit. During the call, Vance pushed back against West Jerusalem's demand, insisting that Washington should not be directly involved in the conflict. I agree, and I've stated that same position for several days now on my nightly program. The concern is that the Israelis are going to drag the U.S. into war, into another war. And how often? What have we done in the Middle East that has led to any good? Seriously, and I want the people out there waving the flag of oh gee, U.S. is we're gonna kick the crap out of another Arab country. Yeah, good luck with that. It'll be the exact same as we got in Iraq. Nothing. It'll be the exact same as we got in Afghanistan. Nothing. What have we done over there that has had any lasting peace? Seriously, where is it? It is not there. Um, the I don't know. I still think that this was totally planned. I gave the report the other day that Israel made an unprovoked attack. They made sure that they called it preemptive because if you call it preemptive with sufficient force and with a sufficient regularity and with everyone calling it also a preemptive strike, then guess what? It becomes a preemptive strike. But the UN Charter requires preemptive to be some sort of imminent attack on you more than what was alleged here. And I outlined that for the other day. If Iran wanted to claim that the U.S. or not the U.S. that Israel had stated that there was a preemptive strike on Israel because that's exactly what they said. We're going to attack. We're going to attack. We're going to attack. We're going to attack. And then guess what? They attacked. So who's preemptive? Who's preemptive? The preemptive strike would have just been justified by Iran striking Israel because that's what they have said. Uh, I don't know. I'm very disappointed in this. Social media users shared screenshots of Vice President during the event when Trump said, hey, we completely and totally obliterated, these nuclear sites, and said that his expressions were confused and unhappy. Later, Vance gave an interview on Meet the Press, saying, "We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. But we want peace in the context of them not having a nuclear weapons program." But the IAEA said they didn't have a nuclear weapon. The watchdog group said they didn't have a nuclear weapon program. And so here's, toeing the line now. He has to. He works for Trump. He has to. So if Tehran, he says, if Tehran refrains from targeting U.S. troops in the Middle East in retaliation. Now here's exactly what I said about what they were doing in Israel. Israel attacks Iran, claiming it's preemptive. Then Iran responds, and Israel can go, "See, we told you so. These guys are evil. They're bombing the hell out of us, and look, if we didn't, they were going to do it anyway." And now everybody starts falling in line, just like Vance, falling in line, just like Vance, doing exactly what he's supposed to do and calling. And now, what will happen? The same thing that always happens. The Americans will get behind their president, the Americans will get behind their military, and will say, go, 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 just like we did in Afghanistan, just like we did in Iraq, and uh, just like we did in every other conflict that we create. We create conflict and then blame the other side for creating the conflict that we created. And here we're just allowing someone else to do it. That someone being Israel. And it's unfortunate that that is the case. To finish up on that, on what Vance actually said, if Iran gives up on their nuclear weapons programs once and for all, then I think the president has been very clear. We can have a good relationship with the Iranians. We have a peaceful situation in that region of the world, he argued. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Sunday that the U.S. does not have the ability to escape heavy response by Tehran for its illegal military attack on peaceful nuclear facilities, and claimed that it has already identified locations where U.S. planes that took part in the strikes where they are stationed. Mm-hmm. Very nice. That's quite the article, huh? Um, what else do we have on this? There were live updates that they're streaming on this. That where are the live updates? Yeah, all these, and they go back for a little while. And think of what has been going on in this. Uh, here you go. We have the Israeli military publishing videos showing attacks on dozens of targets in Iran. Then there's social media of Iranians marching in the streets. They publish footage of a student rally in Tehran that is condemning U.S. strikes. Uh, uh, Vance then gets on, um, Vance or Rubio. Well, Vance, the comments I already read to you, but Rubio's comments are here. If Rubio says, he urges China to persuade Iran not to close the Straits of Hormuz following Washington strikes because they're afraid that they'll close the straits. I encourage the Chinese government in Beijing to call them about that because they heavily depend on the Straits of Hormuz for their oil, he said on Sunday on Fox News. I'm not so sure he's going to get all that much love in China or making recommendations to China. I don't think it's going to happen. Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, has said he does not know the extent of the damage at the Fordo nuclear facility in the wake of U.S. airstrikes. They're a clear indication of impact, but as for assessment of the degree of damage underground, they cannot pronounce. He said that the Natanz above ground facility was completely destroyed, while the underground hulls suffered quite a bit. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has said that the Tehran reserves the right to defend the nation in the territorial integrity of the country. What the world witnessed today is a worrying and unacceptable trend. What has been witnessed by the Zionist regime in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and now Iran is nothing but the merciless slaughter of human beings, he said in a phone conversation with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The latter was calling for solving the issue through diplomacy. Well, the U.S. isn't interested in diplomacy. Uh, and this guy's named Jim Jartis. Okay, and Jartis is a former U.S. diplomat in the region. It's possible, he said. He was on an interview in Russian TV. It is possible that Iran will not get rid of its nuclear technologies. Why? Because they prefer to be more like North Korea than Libya, said former U.S. diplomat Jartis. One of the possibilities that the Iranians would say, we don't want to be Libya. Look what happened to the Libyans when they got rid of their nuclear program. Much better off being North Korea because Kim Jong un, he gets a little bit of respect because he does have some nukes, they said. Now, I don't know the truth of that, but it's certainly worth thinking about. It's certainly worth thinking about to me. Uh, Russia, China, and Pakistan have already circulated a draft resolution at the UN Security Council condemning the U.S. attacks on Iran. The co sponsors of the document demand an immediate ceasefire and offer to guarantee Tehran's peaceful nuclear program in exchange for the removal of sanctions against Iran. Um, then, later, 4 Israeli drones were intercepted and destroyed by Iranian air defenses. U.S. State Department orders non-emergency U.S. personnel and family members to leave Lebanon due to the volatile and unpredictable security situation in the region. Iran is ready to defend itself by all necessary means after the unprecedented U.S. strikes on its nuclear facilities, said the country's foreign minister. He condemned what he described as unconscionable acts of aggression perpetrated by a nuclear armed state against a non nuclear weapon country. True, true. Um, I don't know. I'm grumpy about this. I am quite grumpy, and I think that this is a large mistake, and hopefully it won't continue to escalate. Now think about this. I heard and watched several thought-provoking analysis of this, of what is happening in the world today, particularly in Iran. What we are seeing on a global level, okay? What we are seeing on a global level is, and like I said, we're going to get to the witch path Persia because it's a bit about history, right? It includes where it's going to come from. But I went a little bit further, and I tried to get a little bit more reflective about it all, starting with the perspective that the US in that region always likes to have Israel do the dirty work to get things started, but will never not back them. They are so embedded as part of the US. To think that we wouldn't back even after the fact, even after they make unprovoked attacks on other people. It's foolish to think that it's like they control us, not the other way around. We don't say whether or not we're going to. That decision was made before Netanyahu started the preemptive strikes, as he calls them, preemptive, last week. And he knew exactly what was going to happen. Everybody knew exactly what was going to happen. That is why it happened this way. Is because that's how it has to happen. This is how you get the American public behind you. I'm against this, and I don't think the American public should get behind this. Here we are in another forever war, and it ain't going to go away. I hope it does, but I'm not optimistic. So, what specific elements lead me to believe that strategy? Well, it's historic precedent. We always support them taking unilateral action. It's business as usual, and it's basically the U.S. Middle East policy over the last 30 years. Proxy war, regime change, let Israel start something and then we come in and finish it. And it's the exact same. We unprovoked, I don't know, say unprovoked, but illegal airstrikes. If you look at what the international law requires, illegal airstrikes. And I'm especially interested in this because I heard an interesting thought process, and I happen to agree with this and have said similar things myself. Uh, the rise of China, Russia, BRICS nations, the BRICS, the BRICS groups, and more importantly, the triumvirate of Russia, Iran, and China is forcing the U.S. into ever more desperate, immediate action. Don't tell me that Donald Trump doesn't know that America is in decline, is weakening, may not be the top dog on the global stage for long. And we are reacting poorly to that reality, just like every other superpower did before us, as they came to grips with the fact that they were not uh, eternal. And that's what's happening right now. And it's not just Trump, it's everybody for the last 10 years. But now your people like Rubio, your people like Graham, and all the other neocons, and all the other globalists in Europe and everywhere realize that if they don't do something, that they're running out of time, basically. They're running out of time to reinvent, reestablish, recreate even the US global hegemony domination. We've seen the efforts financially to do that, pushing everybody back to the dollar. My brother announced last week on this program, on my program, that he believed that uh, the U.S. law that was passed last week about regulation of cryptocurrency is the next phase. And I don't know enough about it yet, but it makes sense. If the US can start regulating cryptocurrency and pushing all cryptocurrency through us and through our banking systems, well, then maybe everywhere globally, me buying some cryptocurrency using a Chinese app that has nothing to do with the United States, but I'm a U.S. citizen, and so therefore I can be regulated, and it gets its toes or its fingers into the cryptocurrency realm on every sort of cryptocurrency because I have to report them all, regardless of the size, and they can track me even more. Will mean that the U.S., which has done very well at swapping its own focus or changing its own focus, refocusing every time we started to lose the global power to maintain it. Technology, manufacturing switched to services and technology, switched to global domination of the financial markets and all of that, which kind of shifted us away from the point of view of being isolationist, not really isolationist, but worrying more about our nationality uh, approach to individual U.S. U.S. first approach than worrying about global domination. Well, now we're into at least since Bush won, we're into global domination. We're into we need to control the global world order. That's what we need to do. And so that is what this is the continuation of that. This uh, Brookings report shows you the options and how you could take those various options to do exactly what we are doing. And this is one of the options. Okay. And many of the paths have been specifically followed in that. And this point of view of if our hegemony ends, so do we. I don't agree with that, number one. But then again, I understand why you would continue to get more and more desperate in what you do in the rest of the world. That seems to make quite a bit of sense to me. So if you haven't read the report, I'm going to do a synopsis for you. And basically, and in fact, I might as well do that right now because it's really not that long. I've put together a bit of a synopsis of the key points, and basically it has uh, six major topics: the trouble with Tehran, which outlines Iran's threats to U.S. interests, whether it's nuclear, terrorism, subversion, or peace process. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all those. I'm just saying what the report says. Okay. The second is how you can, what the is diplomatic options to deal with these problems. Okay, and persuasion, incentives versus sanctions, and engagement, cooperation, trying to work together. Haven't really done a very good job of that, have we? Uh, Also, military options. Invasion, airstrikes, Israeli strike. That is actually listed. Israel starts it creates the pretext for us to join, and then we join. This was dictated exactly as it's playing out in 2009. Okay, so we're just following the plan. So Trump can just go, well, I was following the experts. I don't have to make my own mind up. They're already there. Military option, that's outlined. The regime change, they try to encourage a popular uprising, an insurgency, or better yet, a coup. They haven't done that yet, but trust me, it could be out there. Containment option, deterrence to a nuclear Iran, and limiting their influence. And we've been working that as well at any level we can. I say with not as much impact because the triangle of Russia, Iran, China is stronger than it's ever been, in my opinion. And China is helping build different paths to get the oil that Marco Rubio was talking about limiting, that has to come through the Straits of Hormuz. They're talking about the Chinese, I reported on this 6 months ago, were helping build a large port at the bottom and creating rail systems all the way through to avoid having to go through the Suez Canal and coming to different paths to get that to get the product to port. So I don't know. There's a lot of different things going on and a lot of different moving parts. Um, so basically, when you go deeper into the which path Persia, the persuasion point of view was halt the nuclear program, halt terrorism through incentives and sanctions. Okay, and we've tried both of those. Okay, but we haven't worked with them. They said it's flexible and avoids war and depends on Iran's cooperation. Well, according to the IAEA, Iran has been cooperating. It's Israel who claims, and probably Trump through Israel claims that the IAEA has just decided that they're wrong. Right? We decided that they're wrong, so therefore they're wrong. But why in the world do we have a nuclear watchdog in the first place if you don't believe what they say? Why don't you just go back to spying? Why don't you, go back to, well, no, we know better than you. Because you know better than everybody else anyway, and you're not going to listen to other people. Why would there be such a wide disparity in what people are saying? Russia says they're not close. Everybody says they're not close, but except Trump, and people who want war. They're all too happy to take this point of view. Uh, Persuasion was one. Engagement is the second one. Long-term cooperation, accept the nuclear progress. I think, frankly, I think we're going to have to start accepting a lot more nuclear progress of other nations as they come along. We didn't stop Pakistan, we didn't stop India, we didn't even stop North Korea when they developed nuclear weapons, did we? Just didn't happen. Uh, so that's engagement. We try. It reduces the hostilities uh, and creates a friendlier world. And in all seriousness, what's wrong with that? If we don't start creating a friendlier world as Americans, I truly believe this. If we don't start creating a friendlier, less do as I say, not as I do, you'll end up with, which is, we're already nearly there. The entire world doesn't respect us at any level because we don't do what we said we were going to do. And we never do. And we haven't for a very long time until it comes time to bomb something. That will do. We'll waste our money on any good war. Throw us another war, we're all over it. That's we are the most warring country. And this is sad because Americans are not. I mean, the basic American, we are not a warlike nation. But boy, our government is. And they do it in spite of us, in spite of what we want. We don't matter to our own government any more than Iran matters. Remember that. You do not matter. The lives of your children do not matter when it comes to government. The government, they care about their own children, but they sure as hell do not care about yours. They have no desire to risk their own children, but they have no problem risking yours. And they have zero problem bombing the crap out of other countries and sending over, here's 20,000 soldiers. Let's send them over. Let's make sure their legs get blown up. Let's make sure we have another generation of disabled veterans. Let's make sure we have that and make sure that we continue in that regard because, boy, that's what makes us strong, right? It makes us strong. We can show the power that we have. I'm very disagreeable. Maybe, I'm being a little bit smart ass on this, of course, but I don't know. I want to talk about the Israeli strike option that was planned in this report. Okay. And basically, in the report, the goal of this is it presents 9 public policy options for U.S. strategy toward Iran, one of which is allowing or encouraging an Israeli military strike. It's in chapter 5, page 89 to 100. Let's examine this option and see how it aligns with what you believe ought to happen as U.S. policy. And this is exactly what's happening right now. So this is the path that they chose out of the options presented. This is it. Okay. Now they may have pursued multiple at once, but this is definitely the one we're involved in right now. Here's the goal and overview according to the report. According to the report, the goal would be to delay or disrupt Iran's nuclear program by supporting or permitting Israeli airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Bingo! Isn't that what happened? Geez, that's exactly what happened, isn't it? The report frames this as a way to avoid what? Direct U.S. military involvement while leveraging Israel's capability and motivation to act against Iran's nuclear threat. It notes Israel's concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions. They don't need any proof for it if they just say they're concerned, which is exactly what happened. Especially given Tehran's support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and its perceived existential threat to Israel, right? And God forbid there's a threat to Israel, right? Every politician in America is going to come unglued. Oh my God, we got a threat to Israel. I don't give a crap about Israel. No offense to Israel, but I don't care. I'm much more interested in what's going on at home. And so should you be. And if all you care about is the U.S. swinging its big old wiener on the global stage, well, I don't support you either. I think that is a wrong view, just like it was in Iraq, just like it was in Libya, just like it was in Syria, just like it was in Afghanistan. How many times do we got to go through this? And here we are again. And this time it's so President Trump can build a shopping mall in Gaza, right? That's what this is for. So we can put up new malls there. Hey, we'll just relocate you. They've been trying to relocate these people for years. Nonsense. Uh, I cannot support this. I just can't. Uh, anyway, continuing on. The U.S. would need to decide whether to tacitly allow Israel to act by not opposing it or actively encourage it. We actively encouraged it by providing intelligence. Yep. Refueling support. Yep. Advanced weaponry. Yep. We've done all of those. So we weren't not tacitly allowing, we were actively encouraging it, according to the report, right? The report highlights logistical challenges for Israel, such as overflight permission and limited strike capability compared to the US. So, what do? We have a preemptive strike. We send all kinds of people in to blow up the stuff and clear the path for the US and for Israel to keep on bombing the crap out of Iran. That's what we've done. Now, Iran is responding pretty powerfully, but the report highlights logistical challenge. But the pros of this approach, according to the report, it avoids direct U.S. military cost and domestic political backlash because we're too stupid to realize, we don't know, the public doesn't know that this is the plan. The public doesn't know. And we have people who go, "Oh, geez, the people in," which because they posted on all over our television. Remember, that's but another big part of it is that they posted that Iranians hate us. They're death to U.S. Death to, what are we saying to them, friends and neighbors? The exact same thing. We'll bomb the crap out of them. Everybody says it. We've been saying it for years. Why are we afraid of them? Why? You tell me what possible good it is doing us, the typical American in Osage Beach, Missouri, for example. What do you care what's going on in Iran? Seriously. And is same question that Elon Musk was quizzing for so long. Why would you spend your money if it was your decision to make? Why would you spend your own money getting involved in that debacle? Why? I'm not so sure you would. At any rate, let's see. It leverages Israel's willingness to act, and it may delay Iran's nuclear program by a few years. The negatives? Here are the negatives, all of which are occurring. It risks uncontrolled escalation. That's true, because as Iran might retaliate against Israel, U.S. air bases, or other military bases, or attack regional allies, it could fracture international support for sanctions against Iran, and it may draw the U.S. into a broader conflict. No doubt. So those are the cons. But nobody ever reads the cons part of the nobody reads the cons report parts of these reports. They just, yeah, we're all for war, and then off they go. That's America for you. Um, the report explicitly considers Israel acting as a first mover, which is exactly what I have said, that, let's get Israel to do the dirty work. But it does frame it as one of only 9 options, not the primary strategy, and emphasizes the significant risk of doing this, suggesting caution rather than enthusiasm. But that's a report. The enthusiasm comes from people like Rubio and others, especially the Graham types of the world, who can say, "Well, the report says this is one of the nine methods to go after them. That's what we need to do." And we've done it anyway. So, and it's been around long enough, and shit, Graham's been around long enough that everybody knows what he's gonna support and how he supported it. The U.S. avoiding direct involvement aligns with business as usual, in my view. Uh, and historically, we rely on other people to start it, and we just come in and finish it. Except shock and awe, baby, when we went into Iraq. We didn't have any real support for that either. We Now everybody knows about the lies that happened to get us involved in Iraq, right? Here we are watching the exact same scenario weapons of mass destruction. Now we're talking about what? Nuclear capability. They're building a nuclear weapon over there. Do you want that guy to be able to have a nuclear weapon? There's zero evidence that he's building a new weapon. Nothing. Multiple people have come out and said the evidence they are submitting is crap, that it's not there. And when you talk about the strike that just occurred with these bunker busters that allegedly go 90 meters underground, they say they didn't make it. Even the IAEA says they didn't make it. But of course, they haven't been able to inspect it as of yet. But time will tell what really comes from that. But we will see. There's plenty of articles to get to that. Where else were we? That was the chapter. The other options that they had talked about were persuasion. Obama administration's approach in 2009. We're talking about it. Engagement. And that was a chapter 2. Full-scale U.S. invasion to destroy Iran's nuclear program and possibly overthrow the regime. That was chapter 3. That didn't happen right away. I assume that if it doesn't work, or if Iran doesn't immediately get to the negotiating table, they weren't gone from the negotiating table. We were supposed to be at the negotiation table last Sunday. And who didn't go? The U.S. Why didn't they go? Because the day before Israel bombed Iran. Sounds pretty clear to me. You don't got to be a rocket scientist or Iran expert to understand how the U.S. foreign policy works. Next, airstrikes. U.S.-led airstrikes on nuclear facilities, similar to the Israeli option, but with the U.S. engaging. This suggests the U.S. might prefer to act itself if military action is deemed necessary. So Trump is following the exact same report, right? Regime change options. This is all the way chapter 6 through 8. Supports uprising, insurgency, and coups involving covert or indirect U.S. action, like other historic U.S. strategies. The Iran coup in 1953. These are, more business as usual for how the U.S. likes to install, Zelensky types wherever we may roam. We may roam, and then we find our own little puppet to put in somewhere. And the puppets never seem to end up working on our sides or sticking around for too long. I mean, look at the Z-Man. He's not acting on our behalf anymore, is he? Important question. And containment is the last option. Chapter 9 of the 9 varieties here. Deter a nuclear-armed Iran through military presence and sanctions, a long-term strategy avoiding direct confrontation, less aggressive than Israeli strike, but still leverages allies like the Gulf states. So basically what we've done is gone from several pronged approach, including the containment, including efforts at regime change, including engagement and persuasion. But as usual, we've opted for Israel opted for, and it's dragging us along with it for the next level, right? We have to have that next level come to us. If you check out the report and read it and then adjust your focus from what was occurring in 2009 versus what is occurring today, and made your thought process as if this report was addressing the current scenario, which basically hasn't changed dramatically because sanctions have been going on. If you check out the 2009 context, the report was written during the Obama administration, following Bush's struggles in Iraq and Afghanistan, the weakening of the U.S.'s regional influence, Iran's progress and growing influence were seen as exploiting the fact that the U.S. was on its heels, so to speak. The report in 2009 focused on U.S. Iran relations within the Middle East. Very little attention on Russia or China at that time. And so you need to focus it now that now it would change, which is my point of view that we're running out of time according to, the thought process in Washington. You may be running out of time to dictate what goes on in the world anymore. And I think there's even fear right now of what might happen in response from Russia and China. The neoconservative influence. Some authors support interventionist policy. The report was generally neutral and didn't really recommend any of them, not too much over the rest of them. If you look at it from the geopolitical stance of today, let's take that option. The rise of China and BRICS. Uh, let's see. New members like of BRICS, like Iran itself, the UAE, and plenty of others, has challenges Western economic dominance to China's Belt and Road initiatives and growing trade in non-dollar currencies. The yuan, the ruble, are threatening U.S.'s financial hegemony. And Iran has only been a member of BRICS for 2 years now, and its economic resilience against sanctions was strengthened as a result. And so I think that's important to realize. Russia and Iran have deepened their own military ties over the last few years, and China is providing economic backing to both of them. Uh, so this tends to minimize U.S. influence in the other regions, especially in the Middle East. And neocons are frightened of this scenario, exactly this, and they're all too happy to jump to a yet another war and go from there. I don't know. I think anyway, it was a very interesting report. If you haven't read it, I have now, and I wish I had read it in 2009, to be truthful, but I hadn't at the time. I You can find this. Just do a search at Brookings Institute, and it's called the Iran strategy analysis paper dated June 2009. Which path to Persia? Options for a new American strategy toward Iran. And plenty, one, two, three, four, five, six different authors or participants in the authoring of that book, and it has a buttload of pages. It's a pretty involved um, print, you know. So I suggest you read it if you get an opportunity, because even if I've outlined it for you, it's a good read and give you some strategy there. There's paperwork already in place, the live update, see if there's anything new about the closing of the Straits of Hormuz. Nothing new on that at this time. Um, Netanyahu, he gets out, and what did he say? The strike on Iran will change history, he says. Right? This is history is changing according to him. He praises Donald Trump for his bold decision to take part in Israeli bombing of Iran. On Saturday night, U.S. carried out strikes against facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Netanyahu called the move a turning point that has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. Congratulations, President Trump. I want to include in there. Congratulations, President Trump. You did exactly what we knew you would because neocons are all there yanking your chain. Your bold decision. It wasn't his decision. He just victimized to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States. Yeah. U.S. launch airstrikes on. I disagree completely with this, and I am hopeful that I am not in the minority. Um, let's check this. Some commentary on this topic. Somebody named Trouty McTrout Trout says this is all a result of Russia and China refusing to strike back against the West. Not even the guts to do nuclear weapon testing so the world can see and remember what would actually happen in a nuclear war. The West is not afraid at all of retaliation, so they laugh at Russia and China. Now they are toppling the last holdouts to show resistance. Africa is docile and defenseless. South America never really played any role in any serious conflict. But if Iran falls, then Pakistan, India, China, North Korea, and finally Russia will all be crushed in order until the whole world are slaves. They will take our resources, I'm not sure where this guy is from, and leave us to starve in the dust and the dirt, and then cannibalize each other one country at a time until only one remains standing. And in response to that, somebody says, Iran is not in the same league as China or Russia. Neither is it in the league of Pakistan or North Korea. All have nuclear weapons. The West will think twice before dropping any bombs on those countries. The West can only bully the weak that doesn't respond in kind. Well, not if they use, I disagree with that point of view, not if they use Israel. I told you before, the first nuclear bomb to be deployed won't be by one of these other countries, won't be by India, Pakistan, North Korea, Russia, or China. It'll be by Israel. It'll be by Israel, and we won't say a thing about it. In fact, we will back them. Oh, good job. We'll do the exact same thing that this report states. It may escalate it into more, but what difference does it make what bomb you're throwing if you can call it a preemptive strike? If you can call it a preemptive strike, then doesn't matter what weapon you're throwing. And if anybody throws the first nuclear weapon, it will be Israel. And you can put that in the bank, I say. Let's see if there's any good opinions on. No, I'm going to finish up what I was talking about on the. We already talked about closing the Straits of Hormuz. We there. I wanted to get the point of view from the other side of the world and what Iran is assessing as the damage that occurred from the airstrikes. What they say is that the Fordo nuclear site didn't suffer any serious damage. U.S. President Trump claims that all of the three sites that they attacked, including Fordo, were completely and totally obliterated. But Raisi told the agency that, contrary to the claims of the lying U.S. president, the Fordo nuclear facility has not been seriously damaged, and most of what was damaged was only on the ground level and can be restored. Now, there was some, I believe the Pentagon put out some photos from above the region that show some pretty serious craters, but they have to get pretty far down. The reports I was reading over the last week or so were that they have to get 90 meters underground in order to get to where the materials, if anything, or the projects were ongoing. And Iran has also reported that they removed any necessary weaponry or nuclear substance off site from all three of those places because they've known this has been coming for, ever since last week. And that makes sense. Who knows if they're not just posturing, but we're posturing too. Trump says immediately, "Oh, we kicked the crap out of them," and that's that. So, anyway, um, the U.S. aggression means that America is directly entering the war, and now it is Iran that determines how and in what way to respond to this obvious American stupidity, he calls it. Reuters reported earlier, citing an unnamed Iranian official, that most of the enriched uranium had been moved from Fordow to an undisclosed location before the U.S. strike. Iran's Center for National Nuclear Safety System confirmed the attack on the facility, but said emergency inspections at the sites found no signs of radioactive leak. IAEA also said later that no increase in radiation levels had been reported at Fordow, Natanz, or Esfahan. And I suppose that is good news if you say there isn't any. Uh, and the U.S., of course, here we go again. The U.S. Let's get to this little report here. This ought to be entertaining. Um, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shea, stated at the UN Security Council that Iran must be stopped from developing a nuclear bomb, despite the IAEA Director General recently stating that the agency found no evidence that Tehran is pursuing such a weapon. Again, analysts say Washington's narrative resembles past efforts to justify regime change in the Middle East, so analysts aren't really buying it either. Last week, Israel launched airstrikes, citing imminent threat that Tehran would make a nuclear weapon. So that's an imminent threat that Iran gets a nuclear weapon? So what? You have a nuclear weapon, and you're far more likely to deploy it first, in my opinion. Um, let's see. What else did we have? That's a much longer article. You can find that online somewhere if you'd like to. And I don't want to go too much further into that. But there's one that I did want to get to. Is the Israel's war in Iran is really not about nuclear weapons. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons in my mind. And I read an interesting article that I want to share with you by a guy named Robert Inlakesh, and he's a political analyst, journalist, and documentary filmmaker currently in London. He has reported and lived in the Palestinian territories, currently works. Where is he? Well, it doesn't say, but he working for several different news agencies, probably an independent that is putting him out. And he had a interesting read on an article that I was able to read for you or to read, and I want to summarize it for you. And but before that, I want to make sure whether or not you know uh, where we are currently. Supposedly, the U.S. has now got its own ships are backed out of the Straits of Hormuz, and that everything over there is going that we are no longer um, our forces. Of course, the ones that are stationed there are in a little bit of a problem, and um, hang on, I'm doing two things at once. Sorry about that. But our forces are generally not in a huge amount of danger. Now, I disagree with that. I mean, but I also think that if Iran does anything now to attack U.S. interests, that does nothing but justify the escalation, the U.S. escalation to get more war, more war, more war. And so I think that the smart Iran would be better off just continuing to bomb the crap out of Israel. I'm not for that, not at all. But from a strategic point of view, if they start taking out U.S. or bombing U.S. warships or bombing U.S. airfields in the region or attacking U.S. military in the region, that's a surefire way to get the U.S. people to go, oh, damn Iranians. You can't claim you're defending yourself just because Israel and America struck first. That is not permitted. You know, it's uh, it's very interesting. I can't take it anymore. I really can't. These what they are talking about on the other side of the world is that has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has everything to do with regime change and what they are trying to control in America. What is interesting to me, most interesting, is that has there been any news, any at all, about Ukraine in the last week? Except Trump snubbed him at the G7. Trump snubbed the old Z Man and ignored him completely. Z Man didn't get his 40 billion that he needed on an annual basis from the United States. The money's running out that we have sent over there so far, and everybody's forgotten about it because now Ukraine is no longer the big victim. Israel is. And exactly what Zelensky was afraid would happen is what's happening. Now, I'm all for it. We don't belong over there at all anyway, and nor do we belong in Iran. I don't think that's the. I don't think that we need to be involved in any of these forever wars. We just don't. And I think there's been some good strides in the past few years to extricate ourselves, and I did not anticipate remotely that Donald Trump would jump in feet first into a war within his first 6 months in office. I thought that he was going to get rid of war, and instead he starts a new one. And I am very much against that. And I am very much against what is going on. And I'm not positive how we can, as Americans, what I can do to do my part other than do what I'm doing. State my opinion to the world. I was noticing that most of my downloads are actually, I got a lot of people in Russia that listen to me. That's probably потому что я тоже говорю на русском. I also speak some Russian, and I worked in arms control when we were eliminating nuclear weapons, and then our country pretty much unilaterally quit following all of the provisions, but we still want to demand that other people follow the provisions of limitations of guidelines. But it's it's the rest of the world is not are not huge fans of American foreign policy. And I am not a huge fan of American foreign policy. Constant war since when I served in the American Army way back when, and I worked, like I said, in arms control in the military. It was a great job, a great time. I worked for the State Department. I had a diplomatic passport. I loved it. It was a great job. And I thought we were doing something that needed to happen, that we were eliminating threats to the rest of the world so that people, because my children could grow up in a place that didn't have to worry about threats of war. There's been more war in my generation. And I don't mean to laugh about that. It's just nonsense. But every time we turn around, we get a new forever war. And we lose. That's the worst part. We're losing. And we lose every single war we get involved in. Who won Iraq? Did we get anything out of that? Shock and awe, baby. We got to bomb the crap out of some stuff. But what did America really win out of that? Except a bunch of veterans without legs and and same old stuff. What did we get in Vietnam? Left, tail between our legs. What did we get in any armed conflict aside from? Do you remember? I remember I was in high school and Ronald Reagan was the president. And then there was an attack on Grenada. Do you remember the little island in little island of Grenada? And we won in a day or something like that. That's the last war I remember winning. It lasted about a day. And what else have we gotten out of this? I mean, Afghanistan was a farce. It was a debacle. It was a nightmare for us. What did we win? I don't think so. There was no victory for us in Afghanistan. What did we change there? We didn't leave it better than when we got there. We left it worse. Only we're in a much more debt. Same shit is gonna happen in Iran. Same thing. Just get used to it. You're gonna have all these Americans going, yeah, hoorah, baby, our military's gonna kick the crap out of Iran, and then 10 years from now, we'll ease out of there, having gained nothing. We'll ease out, tail between our legs, wasting all kinds of money, all kinds of lives, with plenty of soldiers in the ground or maimed, and then we'll find the next war. Okay. Frankly, I'm surprised that we haven't jumped into Ukraine to kind of prove the points because we can't go against Russia. We feel comfortable going against Iran. I don't think that we should. People want to say that Iran is a backward country with a backward military. Bad mistake that is. I'm not saying they're on the same level as us or Russia, but they got, I don't want to call it the backing of Russia or the backing of China, but that what I told you about that uh, UN resolution put up by China and Russia to go toward diplomacy in this and to condemn the U.S. airstrikes. That's not a small thing. Not a small thing, and it's no wonder that everybody isn't starting to toe the line now, and everybody is at least starting to say that, oh geez, they were steps away from having a nuclear weapon, just steps away. You know what's going to happen if we're not careful? China or Russia is just going to give it to them and say, to hell with your non-proliferation. We're going to give everybody in the region nuclear weapons so that Israel can't be your lapdog anymore. Now, I say that facetiously for the most part, but what are you going to do? If you're Iran, do you want a nuclear weapon less or more now? You want it more, and maybe you'll try to get China or Russia to help you out in that regard. Hell, Pakistan, somebody, North Korea. Let's have North Korea make sure that you have the proper technology and the proper processed uranium. Maybe so somebody will do it. But so the only reason that Israel gets away with what it does is because everybody knows that the first person to throw a nuclear bomb won't be one of these third world countries. It'll be Israel, which is also a third world country, but only in the effect that it thinks like a third world country. This 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 Netanyahu. Have you read his book? I read his book, and boy, I tell you what, he's pretty self-congratulatory. That is for sure. And he goes with God wherever he goes. God is on his side, even if that means bombing the shit out of a neighboring country. And he would have the exact same thought process if he was throwing a nuclear bomb instead of a bunch of aircraft being sent over with conventional weapons instead, or initiating drone strikes through some kind of a spy organization inside of Iran. Um, all kinds of interesting times we are living in. And I am less than pleased about it. Let's see, where else are we going to go? Trump is threatening already more strikes. Um, let's see. U.S. President Trump, this was not too long ago. This was just an hour or two ago. Uh, he has now warned Tehran to make peace or face more attacks after he carried out massive precision strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. In a televised address, the president told the nation, "Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's number one state sponsor of terror." Remember, that used to be Saddam Hussein. Well, it was George Bush Jr., the boy. He, Saddam Hussein, those guys are supporting terrorism. Those terrorizers over there. Tonight, I can report to the world that strikes were a spectacular military success. Does Trump ever do anything that's not spectacular or fabulous or great? Everything is one of those things. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. I'm not so sure that's true. I don't know that they got that far down. There's been quite a bit on the other side of the world saying, nah, they didn't get that deep. And even if they did, we moved all the enriched uranium to another spot anyway. Trump warned Iran against retaliating. Yep, don't retaliate, or we're going to do it again. I am so against this, I can hardly stand it. I have been pretty much for the things that Donald Trump said when he was running for office, and as far as domestically, pretty much for the things he's doing to change what's happened. Starting with this uh, bigger bigger bill or whatever, the big bad bill that he was creating, this new one. I've been against. That thing is a monstrosity, just goes right back to more government spending. I'm against it. Now, people can disagree on that, but, and I've acknowledged that perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps that bill will do more to encourage U.S. economic growth. I personally don't think so. I think it speeds us quickly toward an economic collapse. The rest of the world is already selling off U.S. debt, and this new bill is going to increase U.S. debt. By all accounts, it's going to increase U.S. debt more. It isn't going to it isn't going to lower it. And here's how they're selling it to you. Well, geez, you're looking too short term. You're not looking long term enough. Yeah, because long term he won't be in office. Some other goon will be in office, and they'll change it right back to the way it was before. And we'll go back to business as usual. In fact, this is part of business as usual. The same old a-holes get the same old piles of money to do the same old global world building through their NGOs and their money grubbing whores all over the planet. That the same old people. Now, maybe if they gave me my share, maybe I wouldn't bitch about it so much. But where's my 100 million? Where's my NGO? How about you let me advertise on my little podcast here? You throw me, I don't know, a couple million a year to support saying pro US things, and I'll change the things I say. How about that? That's what everybody else is doing. Everybody else just changes it. It says, well, that's how they get money all over Ukraine. All these NGOs, all of these sites that are all they're doing is out there to change the world opinion about the U.S. So if you can have enough people saying the right thing, but I'm not against it. I'm a truth speaker. Unfortunately, I've been a truth speaker my entire life. I've been a truth speaker since I was in the military, and I worked on the Nevada nuclear test site and said, "Why in the world are we conducting underground nuclear explosions? What possible good can come from it, and what difference does it make whether it's 1 kiloton or 1.5? If you're blowing people up, what difference does it make? If you're especially if you're blowing them up with a nuclear bomb, what do we need now? I just shared with you an article a little bit ago that said that some people doing their that the commentary on that article is, why didn't somebody respond more? Why didn't the U.S. Or why didn't China or Russia conduct some underground or above ground nuclear testing just to show that they still have the capabilities? Now, allegedly, that's what we were doing in part. I was at the Nevada nuclear test site for the very last underground nuclear explosion that the U.S. conducted. So what we would do, we'd be with Russian counterparts. They were there too. I was escorting Russian nuclear scientists that got to verify our underground testing, and then they called theirs off before we got to go do their last one. They quit before we did, and then when we started, it was the last one that we did was in 1993, I want to say. It might have been 1992. But I was on the ground for that at the Nevada nuclear test site, that very last underground nuclear testing. And that was amazing to have been there. But we haven't done any underground nuclear tests since then. I'm sure there are people still clamoring for it. Like, when are we going to start underground nuclear testing again? We better start, because there are people wondering why Russia and China haven't started showing off. I can't remember the last undergrounds. I think the last underground tests were done by North Korea, if I recall. Although there's some argument that Iran was looking at trying to do some. There were some underground tremors that they were trying to claim might have been the result of a nuclear test in Iran some 6 8 months ago. If you remember me reporting on that, I recall that. And but nobody ever proved that it was a result of the uh, as a result of the, what do you call it, of an underground test. They say it may have been a result of what do you call it, of an earthquake or shifting plates or something like that. And so, but I was always, when I was there at the Nevada nuclear test site, there were guys that had worked there. There was an old guy named Ernie that worked there, and Ernie had been there since the 50s. And in the 50s, the U.S. was doing above ground nuclear testing there. And they were doing, and we had to watch films to prep for that, right? We had to watch the films that, the old black and white films. They had dug, what do you call it, foxholes and trenches all around, and then they put a bunch of soldiers in there, so-called volunteers that weren't really volunteers, that they put in there, and then they blew up a nuclear bomb over their heads. And I would have never done that. Well, I don't know that I would have had a choice, but but we haven't been the greatest of people on the American side, and especially when it comes to nuclear explosions. Who's the only country on the planet to have used a nuclear weapon in war? It's not much of a quiz, is it? It's only one. Why do I say that the only people that'll start a war now? I would like to think that the U.S. wouldn't do it again, that maybe we learned our lesson, but I don't think Israel would have any qualms about lobbing the first nuclear nuclear weapons somewhere, even if the radiation drifted over their own country. If the radiation drifts over their own country, well, geez, that's part of what we have to pay for. I can't imagine that they wouldn't just do it if they felt the urge. I think they would just do it. And I don't know that I like the escalation. In fact, I know I don't. Um, I'm going to give you a couple of more newscasts. Russia again beat the snot out of Ukraine overnight. Um, they're testing new laser weapons. Have you heard about that? There's all these. There's now they're using laser weapons. But and then there's a video of it. I will see if I can share the link because it was a hell of a video. And if I share this link, you should be able to see that video. And it's they're testing lasers, anti-aircraft laser systems. How about that? And they want to use them to kill drones. I thought that was an interesting video, and I hope you can all hope it's downloadable everywhere. But it's certainly worthy of a view. That's what I say. So that news is going on. We have um, NATO summit here. This is important, especially and the reason this is happening is because the U.S. attacking Iran. And so get this. Here is NATO summit is ditching its Ukraine meeting. The upcoming gathering of the U.S.-led NATO summit will reportedly have a reduced agenda and no long communiques regarding Ukraine. We're giving up. Well, frankly, we should have given up a long time ago. I'd like to see Europe stop demonizing everybody. Stop demonizing Russia. Russia wasn't Ukraine's enemy in the first place. We created that. The West created that. An upcoming NATO leader summit in the Netherlands, and trust me, I know that from the point of view of a former diplomatic interpreter in Russian. I listen to Vladimir Putin all the time, and I've been listening to him for years. I've been listening to Lavrov. I love listening to Lavrov. That guy's freaking very respectable. Do I always agree with them? No, but they say they're very, very consistent. Very consistent. And you can't claim that you didn't know what they were going to say. Anyway, the upcoming NATO Leaders Summit in the Netherlands will have a shortened schedule with the focus on Ukraine drastically reduced, according to Politico. Right? The summit, set to be held on June 24th and 25th, will feature two main events: a welcome dinner at the Dutch royal family castle and a single meeting of the North Atlantic Council instead of the usual two or three. There will also not be a meeting of NATO's Ukraine Council. Yep. And they're taking it out of the NATO summit statement. Their NATO, what do you call it? Ukraine membership out of NATO statement. They give a statement every year. Here's what we're going to talk about. This one will not have it in there because you don't want to piss off Donald Trump. You don't want to piss him off. Prospect of Ukraine joining NATO will not be mentioned in the declaration at the bloc summit later this month, said Bloomberg. Kiev has long sought to become blah, blah, blah. We know that. The one-page draft statement, which was seen by the who was this, Politico, focuses on NATO spending only, not about Ukraine. The summit in The Hague will reportedly include blah, blah, blah. The dinner, I already told you that. Notably absent from the statement is the prospect of Ukraine joining the military alliance. Last year's military assistance pledge was $45 billion, and it will not be renewed, said the report. In 2024, Secretary General Stoltenberg urged bloc members to make a multi-year commitment. Annual spending across the bloc should amount to 40 billion euro or $45 billion each year. But U.S. said no dice. Last week, the old Z-man couldn't even get a meeting with Trump to say, hey, Where's my 40 million? I need, or billion. I need 40 billion more, and you're the only one that can print that out. Printing out straight debt, by the way. And we don't want to print out straight debt. At least I don't. Most Americans are very much against this. And by the way, I actually think that 90% of Americans are against this Iran nonsense too. This has nothing to do with us. And here we are being dragged in again. I've beaten the hell out of that topic for today. My name is Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. You can listen to me live Sunday through Thursday at demradio.com/live. And I am there Central Time, which is Chicago, every night, Sunday through Thursday, from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And otherwise, and I also put them all out on the podcast. I record them to the podcast at internationalflavor.com, and you can follow them also at damradio.com/podcast. There are also other good content there from other political commentators on our station. And if nobody's on, there's good music playing. So I look forward to hearing from you, or you hearing from me again. Thanks for all those that joined, commented, supported, and liked. Have a very good day, and please follow my page so that we can make sure you get noticed again. Have a good day.